leave that company for the rest of my career. So I've made several stops. I'm an engineer by profession, and I spent most of my time in R&D and roots of our grow avocados.
Yeah, could be. Could be. The wind is so extreme. Hello, I'm Kleinert. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Well, we have never met,
of course. How do you do?
Kent Lockhart from the Walt Disney Company.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Saying something.
교수님께서 포즈를 좀 취해주시죠. 선에서 올리시죠.
말씀하시는 것이요.
So, BMW is the best car in the world. Are you doubting that? Never, ever.
Actually, I was curious to know, how many, Walt Disney has how many employees?
Well, understandably, the topic that they have provided us with is how to be successful in recruiting and developing creative global talents. Well, they have all the goody words here. And I guess perhaps we can talk about what you do in the field of recruiting and developing global talents. And then if you have some disagreement, then you can shout. Well, since we already have BMW presentation this morning, perhaps may I start?
Sure, let me begin just to frame up the global aspect. The Walt Disney Company has slightly over 30 different countries represented from an employment standpoint. We have executives in 34 different countries and 130,000 employees worldwide. So from the majority of our recruitment efforts are local, and therefore we have several centers of our company in which they do the majority of the recruiting. At each one of our different parks throughout the world, they do their recruiting efforts there. We also have centralized offices in Los Angeles, New York, and Bristol, and then Hong Kong. And although that has a park associated with it, there is also a company aspect that does recruiting outside of that discipline.
It seems that in Walt Disney, creativity is the name of the game, and I think one person can easily feed 10,000 if not more. So I guess the real genius is how to spot this creativity. How do you do it?
That is very true. Certainly one of our Imagineers certainly can develop enough work to keep thousands of others busy creating our parks or establishing our movies or something of that nature. Being able to spot that unique individual, there is a lot of industry association in regards to people and how they've developed their careers over time. It's not uncommon for someone to, work at a variety of different places at some point, but then kind of find a home where they feel at ease with the culture, and then they stay with us. So most of our executives have been with us well over a decade or more from that standpoint, and their ability to utilize the creative aspect of our company, our heritage. It is generally something that's able to be demonstrated over time as they work through a variety of areas. We promote a lot of individuals from within our company, so they've had a chance to progressively demonstrate their creativity and be involved in multiple projects so that they see all the aspects of the cycle.
Boeing is no second when it comes to creativity, because there is, to keep the leadership, you have to have this creativity always in mind. And how would you call it?
Similar to Walt Disney, the Boeing Company has a major footprint in the U.S., a very small footprint outside of the U.S. And so our focus is on identifying attributes. We have a new management model that was brought in by our CEO, and we have 6 different attributes that we try to measure people for in terms of how we select them, promote them, reward them in terms of executive compensation. And so that's really kind of where our focus is trying to narrow those people through the filter. Today, every vice president that gets selected is selected based on those attributes and their performance against those attributes.
Can you name these 6 attributes?
I think so. Let's see.
You said there was no test.
First is charting the course. So being a visionary and being able to take a team and lead them. Charting the course, living the Boeing values. Let's see, boy, I'm not doing very good. Leadership attribute, living the Boeing values, charting the course, finding a way is another one. So finding a solution, not letting the big company bureaucracy get in the way, but using that as a strength versus a reason not to. Let's see, there's 2 others, and they'll come to me shortly. But those are the primary attributes that we're looking for.
I'm particularly interested in the second one, that is kind of sharing the value.
Yeah.
I think which is very important, not only in your company but also in Walt Disney. But sometimes this sharing the value may prohibit the kind of wild, creative thinking. How do you sort of
Well, for us, one of the things that we do, we look at those two as really balancing mechanisms. You know, on one hand, it's find a way, but it's not find a way at any expense. It's find a way ethically, find a way that's, through the system where you're leveraging, other parts of the company, not competing against them, but bringing everything that the Boeing company has to take, at the table in terms of our engineering talent, people, supply base and stuff to make sure that one's not done at the expense of another.
you're conscious of this balancing mechanism? Well, being a sort of, I'm sure that your people of 100,000 plus are all sort of knowledge possessors, so to speak. How do you keep these people?
I'll share a couple words about our own experience. I am not in HR internally. I'm part of our human capital consulting practice, but we as a professional services firm like to think that we are sort of the ultimate human capital firm because our only asset walks out the door every evening. And so we do place a lot of emphasis on our value structure we talked about, but how we replenish that talent. And actually within our industry, we have a pretty low rate of turnover, but it's probably a high rate of turnover for most of you. It's probably in the 20% range, and it varies by country, but our model is sort of an upper-out model to a large degree. There's exceptions to that, but so we are constantly bringing people in at the bottom and at senior hires and assimilating them and trying to put them into our pyramid, if you will, our staffing model. But then, we pride ourselves, this is true in the U.S., this is true globally, on having a pretty distinct culture within our firm. And culture, of course, is hard to define, but our culture tends to be pretty highly collegial, highly communicative, pretty non-hierarchical, and those are easy things to say. They're hard things to prove and demonstrate, but as we put a lot of emphasis on conducting employee surveys and employee engagement surveys. We also do a lot of analysis of people we lose to competitors versus those that we gain from competitors, and they have a pretty significant net inflow. So we do place a lot of emphasis on that. One other point that I'd say from our consulting experience, the point of view that we operate with is that a lot of organizations put too much emphasis on recruiting and retention. How do you get people in the door? How do you keep them from leaving? And sort of miss the emphasis on the employee experience while they're with you. And so we have a construct which Ken sort of before called Develop, Deploy, Connect. Put your emphasis on how you develop employees, how you deploy them into different roles and positions, how you connect them to the organizational mission and to one another and to the resources they need to do their job. Develop, Deploy, Connect. Put your emphasis there, and frankly, by virtue of doing that, the attraction and retention problems sort of solve themselves because you become acknowledged as an employer of choice, and it's easier to recruit, it's easier to attract, and conversely, you aren't losing people at the back end as frequently.
Well, being highly talented, you have to work with good people, but the other side of the coin is that they seem to be more opportunistic. In other words, they have other opportunities also, companies that they can easily move out. How do you control and manage these?
We don't see that as a bad thing. When people leave us, if too many people were leaving us, that would be problematic. But we expect that a certain percentage of our people will be leaving us and going on to other careers and, hopefully not another consulting firm, but in private and public organizations around the world. And we like to cultivate that network of alumni as well.
Would you say 1 out of 4, 5, or 20%?
Well, annually it's 20%, but if it were each percentage point of turnover, as we all know, is expensive. So the difference between 18% and 20% is significant. And we benchmark ourselves against our competitors. Our turnover tends to be a bit lower than others, and we like that.
I'm sure that your company has much, much less turnover than companies.
What is the rate?
It depends something between 1 and 1.5.
1 and 1.
But that is not that's not the business model. That is, consulting companies do have and want to have that turnover rate. It's something between 15 and 20. Our turnover rate in some cases is probably too low.
Compared to companies in the open industry.
You don't get enough fresh blood from outside. So, of course, we do not fire people for that reason, but when we go back to my clients, it's 360 who are leaving on a volunteer way 1 or 2 a year. And that is normally from the tops, and they are normally promoted to be a member of the board in another company.
I see, that's one. But from your presentation this morning, I came to feel that you are very, if I may say, addictive to the corporate identity.
Yep.
And I think you take pride in that identity. This is the purposeful policy to have this strong identity as a company, rather than each individual going over the other directions.
That what we have to take this window is something that you cannot change from day to day. When I talk to people who probably want to join us, I tell them very clearly, or try to explain it, with the Swiss Army.
Swiss Army, yes.
The Swiss Army, it's a volunteer army, and everybody is dying for his country. Probably, if you have such an environment, you do not get the best, but you get people who are highly motivated, highly identified with what they do. They have passion for what they do, and that is a little bit like BMW. When you take other companies, and that is not good and bad, that is just a different way. You can get the result, probably temporarily better results, by getting people who are highly paid for their job. You just make a deal, you come in for 3 years or something like that, do the job, and then you're going again. That is like the paid soldiers. That's a different style. Of course, it is gray in between, but we are more on that Swiss Army side. And that is a style of the company for nearly 90 years now. So we have to live with that and have to find ways how we can utilize that the best. I'm afraid you cannot change that from today to tomorrow.
And it is practiced not only within Germany, but also in other countries as well?
We have, let me take China. China has a normally rate of leaving of 15%, as far as I know. So even in China we are below 5, 2 to 2.5%. So, and we are getting, even in China, where we are now for 5 years or something like that, perfect results from in our reviews, in our surveys from that we do with our associates. So that culture and that attractivity of the brand may I add one thing to what the colleague said? And I think it's not by chance that here is sitting someone from, or all three are coming from very famous companies. And if you want to attract good people, you need a successful company. That is the basement. If you are not a successful company, then you probably get only good people if they do see a chance to make a career in that demolished company. But the rest is first have a look at the good names. Start with the good names. That is always good for your career. That is as simple as that from my point of view.
Yeah, it sounds like you've put a lot of effort into aligning your people brand with the company brand, and I think a lot of organizations are now doing that.
BMW, that is true.
Yeah.
That is one brand, one company. We are a little bit proud that we have achieved to really separate the Mini brand. The Mini brand, as part of the BMW group, they are really different. And we are beginning now that we are asking ourselves, can that manager go to Mini? Does he fit to Mini? Is he can he match with the?
Are they generally smaller?
No, That is exactly the other way around. You cannot take that, say that yuppie style BMW manager and bring it to Rolls-Royce. He will never fit to the Rolls-Royce customers. And everybody who is in charge for Rolls-Royce gets in touch with customers. We have thousands a year. So
it's the customer identity that really dictates.
Yes.
It's coincidental that your business seems to be at the other extreme end of BMW, isn't it?
To a certain extent, I think there's similarities. I think that we also have some uniquenesses. We have multiple businesses, so when I talk about my company, it's difficult to say something that is across all. I think the one thing that does go across all of our segments really is the fact that our product brand basically establishes the employment brand. And so if a person works for ESPN, they know that that's the finest in sports, reporting and entertainment. If they work for, Walt Disney Pictures or theme parks again, they feel about the quality that I think you, from your company, you have the single aspect to look at. So.
Well, perhaps there can be cross-fertilization between two of you.
Well, it is interesting. You spoke about, a distinct brand that is somewhat separate. You probably have isolated the Mini brand. We have certain portions of our company, such as our Pixar, which is our animated area, which has recently joined the company. That is somewhat isolated and can be isolated because it is a different mental style and is able to stay small and more agile and isn't as cumbered with the burden of a larger company. So we try to give it the benefit of a large company without the burden.
But Boeing is one single company, one single line of products, is it or not?
So intentionally, our strategy is to be a very centralized company. And the interesting thing is when we went out and bought Rockwell's Aerospace Defense business, McDonnell Douglas and Hughes, they had a very different operating model. They had profit and loss level at very low levels in the organization, and the Boeing company had profit and loss at the 3 operating levels at the time. And so it's very intentional that we brought all of those together and made sure that it was one company with a very centralized approach. That's a little bit different with some of our newer acquisitions, especially in the service business and our commercial aviation services. There we tend to leave them alone. But those are not the big acquisitions. Those are more the niche players that we have. The other interesting thing about how we've done that is, if you look at our finance team, most of our finance team come from either Rockwell or from Heritage McDonnell Douglas, the ones that had more autonomy and more flexibility and had the responsibility. So if you look at our CFO and several of the people that are there, they just had more broad experiences. So it is a very centralized approach to how we run the business.
Do you have much of a separation or difference in, say, culture or values between, say, the commercial business versus the defense business?
Absolutely, Dick. Great question. I have twins. I have a little boy and a little girl, and I define the company in those same ways. My daughter has a very unique personality, and my son does as well, and they're very different. The first 10 years of my career I spent in the defense business, and in the last portion I've spent in the commercial. I think a large part of the defense business is driven by cost accounting. You know, making sure that people account for a tenth of an hour down really drives the focus on cost. Whereas in the commercial arena, the focus is on, you know, the end product, the customer, what are we all working together, so it's much more collegial in that way of how we work there. So two different cultures that we're trying to make sure that we're complementing each other, which is why we put so much focus on our leadership center.
Do you often, I don't mean to dominate this, but do you often move people between the two? And is that difficult?
It's sometimes difficult, but, you know, it's not that bad. I mean, a lot of times, you know, especially in our corporate groups, so moving people out of BCA into our corporate functions, we're seeing more and more of that movement, and we're intentionally doing that for leadership development purposes.
May I ask another question? At least in the 90s, the Boeing board was proud that everybody could fly every plane that they made, right? And there was a lot of, they were very proud. I do only know these people that are making that commercial thing, but they were so proud of their programs. They were really product-driven, so there were some similarities to BMW. Is that still the case?
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you cut any of our engineers, little Boeing symbols would fall out, all of them. You know, the product affinity that we have, like the 87 now, you know, people just really are in love with that airplane. It's a great airplane, and we're really excited about it. And even just people feel a lot of passion around it.
When you have that type of philosophy, though, it would certainly narrow the bench in regards to who could actually assume any of those roles. That's a fairly high criteria.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we just announced that we were going to split the schedule on the 87. We moved it out 6 months, and we replaced Mike Baer, who was leading the program, with the guy from IDS, Pat Shanahan, who came from the IDS business. Now, he's one that did, Pat started his career in commercial. He spent the past 7 or 8 years in defense, and now is coming back to operate commercial. So we're trying to be pretty intentional about what we're doing.
Well, in the ancient Chinese literature, they say that there are 3 elements of human resources. One is selecting people, the second is cultivating people, or developing people, the third is utilizing people. And it seems that combining the 3, you have 2 lines of different approaches. One is selecting the right people and utilizing, that is mode A. Then selecting whatever you can, and then developing people, emphasizing the development part, and then utilizing people. So you spend much energy and time and money on selecting, and then using people. I guess it can be an exaggeration, but it's more or less an American way, model. While in Japanese or Korean companies, they do not spend much time on selecting people. They just choose whatever people they apply as far as they have good academic credentials. And then they spend 6 months to 1 year at least to develop them at the beginning. And then they utilize. That's more or less Asian model. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but between the two, which one do you think is fitting in your company?
I'll start. The Boeing company, if you think of our commercial sales group, people don't become a salesperson, you know, everyone. It takes years and years for people to get into that position. So it's typically an engineer that knows the product extremely well. They probably designed, some part of the product and grew up through the engineering ranks, and then they, just spent years and years working their way up through developing customer relationships, understanding things, and probably 15 years before a person could become a salesperson.
Yes. Well, and then in defense?
Our defense is a little different. I mean, it depends. A lot of times we'll have second career people out of the military potentially, but people that grow up on program management skills are really important in engineering. Those engineering, program management, and just general leadership are probably the three critical skills for the Boeing company.
So you can sort of recruit the established people in the industry.
I think we probably have a combination, depends on the discipline, it depends on the job and the level within the company. I think that within our theme parks, those folks that operate Tokyo Disneyland, Hong Kong Disneyland, or the other theme parks, I think that there is more of a philosophy that we hire according to their ability to provide hospitality, to their ability to provide a safe environment for our guests. I think those are very high criteria, and then I think that most of the work then for them to take on leadership role is developed within the company. When we look at some of our other industries, such as our film productions, there is industry background, knowledge, skills that are required, and for some of the positions, there's years of working within the industry to it's an old term, but as they say, build your Rolodex, which means, the people that you know, your social network, the industry associations that you have, the working relationships. Within other positions, I think within our support positions, such as marketing or finance or things of that nature, our brand affords us the opportunity that often the best and the brightest of some of the schools or those people with experience from other quality companies do seek us out, and they're also the people that we target for recruitment. So from that standpoint, for a finance position, relatively low in the organization, we can still require or have a criteria that's extremely high for the same type of position in other locations, often requiring things like a CPA and an MBA for an analyst position. So I don't know how long that will continue, because quite often that criteria and that selection makes for a very narrow population that you can actually move towards.
So would you use Model B or Model A? Certainly it's a combination, but...
I'll tell you the story and you can decide.
Yes.
We generally follow that simple saying, hire for attitude and train for skills. Because it is easy to train skills if you have the right people, the right intelligent people. And we have to train them because we do not get people ready from university. I think it's okay that way, because the university has to deliver people with a broader basement, and then we can, based on that, train our specific things. So that is one element. When we talk about coming people to senior or middle management from outside, there is generally speaking no necessity to have a look whether they are good at that, because they have a track record. You can have a look at that, and they are known in industry. Very, very simple. So then the only question is, do they fit to the company or not?
Sparkling water, please.
And that is, we test that with 7, 8, 9, 10 different interviews to get a good feeling. It is at the end of the day, it's feeling.
At the end of the day, it's the feeling. Yeah. It's the statement.
I think that's very true. I mean, that's your relationships are
like you. It's the feeling that you can just... That's right.
And I don't know how I'd answer it either, because I'm thinking about our own experience, but I'm also thinking about our clients. I lead our human capital practice in Asia Pacific, so even in China and Japan, I think that historically, certainly what you described was the model, put the emphasis on training, developing them. But today it seems that organizations are trying to be more precise and thoughtful in terms of what type of people do we need, with what skills and competencies and values. Let's define that in advance, and then let us both recruit to it. And let us also then put more effort in developing to that specific model of competencies and skills, behaviors, and attributes. So, I mean, our own consulting practice, we do a lot of work in Japan and China and Korea with recruitment, but we also do a lot with development and training.
Well, one...
So it's a difficult question.
Of course, yes. But one compromise also, one middle ground seems to be establishing corporate university. Because with that you have a formal setting, but still you can infuse your culture and so on. From about 10 years ago, this corporate university concept was quite popular. Is this still going on or not? Is it still going on?
In terms of the Boeing company, it hasn't figured out. As a matter of fact, there's renewed emphasis on that. Our CEO, his heritage is General Electric, and they have Crotonville, and we have a facility in St. Louis that, very much is there a renewal in terms of what we do. That's really the epicenter of our culture and where we do our leadership development. And the other thing that we're doing there is instead of bringing a lot of consultants in to teach, we're really moving away from that model and bringing in, we call it leaders teaching leaders. So Jim McNerney and the executive committee are at that leadership center on a very regular basis, speaking to frontline managers, middle managers, about what the company's about, embed the leadership attributes into what we do. So for us, it's still a central part of what we're doing.
It seems there is no more East-West type of dichotomy. And as you said, even in Korea and Japan, they are spending much more time in selecting people. But speaking of this Crotonville, I happened to be there about 2 months ago for about a week. I met all the gentlemen and officers. And I was a very interesting story. Well, Jeff himself said, we don't recruit the top performers in the prestigious universities because they tend to leave easily and they don't conform to the culture. So the target is to select the sort of middle to upper middle level of the scholastic performance, those with that performance, because they are the ones with whom they can build the organization. Is it true in your organizations too, or?
I would say
different.
we do a combination, because we certainly have positions that we fill directly from, what we would refer to as the top 10, top 5 schools for certain industries and experiences. We hope to, at that point, then bring them in at a point of their careers that we have the ecosystem in order for them to stay with us and mature and to grow, with us over time, and that they will not mature more rapidly than we can train them and absorb them into promotions and positions. And so from that standpoint, I would say that we still are able to do that, with success in some areas. Rarely would we bring someone from a school directly into a leadership position without other experience, within their industry.
In your company, it is totally different, I guess.
We do hire from the best schools and hire the top tier of talent. That presents certain talent management issues. I think high talent is oftentimes high maintenance, high expectations, but we do attract that. Although there are a few schools, which I won't identify, where we have not had a good track record of those individuals assimilating into our culture and organization, so we sort of shy away from them. Can I go back to your other point for just a second on the corporate university?
Please, yes.
Talk about us internally. About a year ago, we made a very high-level commitment that we are going to invest more in the development of our people. And we approached all of our partners in the U.S. and have started a voting process of saying, would you rather have bricks or clicks? And this is, should we invest in a physical corporate university, a single campus site where we bring people there and have, of course, the programs there that also has some cultural benefits, or would we rather have a virtual program, where best-of-breed programs dealing with existing academic institutions and other organizations, and connect that way. And that debate is still going on, and pros and cons on both sides of it.
I'll add to that because Dick's group actually was very instrumental in assisting us as we implemented our learning platform, so that we would have what we not termed as a university, but we had rebranded it as being part of the Disney University. Tomorrow during my speech, I will talk about certain parts of the core curriculum as well as the learning platform and how it comes together that way. I think that it is somewhat of a combination. We have, from a corporate standpoint, started to rebrand our Disney University. It had basically fallen into a shadow for parts of our company, and basically still had a dominant presence in the parks, where it was seen as a different entity. But we're rebranding it and basically resurfacing it now as a viable source. But we are making it much broader so that it's both the experiences, it's the interactions, mentoring, and the online.
In Korea, Hyundai Motor Company has a kind of special agreement with a number of universities where they would recruit the freshman class people, and then they work with professors there to co-develop the curriculum and so on. And at the end of the program, when they graduate, they just get qualified. Do you have that kind of practice?
We do have that in Germany. Yes. We have several models of the kind. Of course, we are very closely linked with the technical university and the, let's say, the philosophical university of Munich. That is obvious. Our boss of the supervisory board is a professor from the technical university in Munich. So that is closely linked. But give me a chance to come back to your initial question. It depends on the job.
Depends on the job.
When I'm looking, in our case, we are looking for somebody who develops the engine of year 2020, and we are really looking for the best one. If we want to have somebody to lead 20 people, we are probably not looking for the best one in terms of school. We are looking for the one who can do that the best, and that is what you do not find in whatever papers that somebody can have. So there and that high maintenance type of guy or girl that is welcome when we are talking about specialist areas, but not for normal business, because they can really destroy teams. Yeah, that's true. That is absolutely true, and you are ending up with so much trouble. So we are very careful at that.
So at the end of the day, fear is important.
Yeah. Probably you know about the method, but then let me know and really come to Korea and we'll study that.
We all have to develop a model. So do you have that kind of feel?
Well, what Franz was talking about in terms of identifying that leader, we certainly see that play itself out in our company. Having the right person at the right place. A person can be a brilliant engineer, but if they don't have those leadership qualities, it just makes a world of difference. And, especially general manager of a factory or running a major program, that manager, that leader, has so much influence on the success of the operation. And when we put someone in there, it's really tough if they don't succeed for everybody involved.
You just triggered a thought. Forgive me, was it Stone Cipher was the CEO? When he left, who succeeded him?
On an interim basis, James Bell, CFO.
Okay.
McNerney came in.
And McNerney came in from the outside? When Eisner retired, Iger replaced, that was an internal promotion.
Definitely.
Your CEO?
Only internal promotion.
Only internal.
for the last 40 years.
Interesting. So it's interesting that a mixed model.
Yeah, well, for the last 24 years, we've only had 2 CEOs. From the standpoint of what you were discussing, succession planning is crucial for us as we look into the future, and we try to figure out both who needs to be developed as well as where will we have gaps that we will need to start recruiting from the outside. So we use both models in order to be able to figure it out. So really mapping out a succession plan for individuals over the last few years has made us given us an opportunity to see how things might scope and be able to target development, so that individual that has the technical skills but not the leadership skills, that we can start getting to them as early as possible to develop the leadership skills. But sometimes we have to actually match it against their career aspiration, because quite often the technical or the creative, the innovative individual that, a next promotion would require them to have a leadership scope. They don't want that as a career aspiration, and so we look towards how do we take a creative, independent contributor model to assist them, rather than even, it's just like, well, the next move is leadership, here's leadership development. We would move a different track, but they would also acknowledge the fact that they're latticing their career differently. They're not bringing it into leadership, which for the most part has the largest payoff for them.
I had a very interesting conversation with Jay Welch upon his retirement, 1 month after he did. And among the questions I raised was, during his tenure as CEO for 20 years, what was the most important strategic decision he made? And even before I finished the whole sentence, he just cut in and said, the choice of Jeff Immert was the most important strategic decision. Very good. I agree. Answer, was it? And he elaborated that he started his CEO position in 1981, but he started searching for his replacement in 1986, and it took 15 years of very elaborate processes. But then the day was Jeff Immert. Do you have that kind of elaborate system of choosing the next CEO?
I'm involved in succession planning. I can tell you I am not involved in the selection of the CEO. The board of directors is. But I can also tell you that Bob Iger, prior to Michael leaving, was really the sponsor for succession planning within the organization below the CEO. So from that standpoint, we've established a framework for succession planning that does map out individuals' potential and their capability to be able to move into positions. We're still a work in progress in order to do that. Saying that, when Bob assumed his position as CEO, that was the point that he started his succession plan. So, and from an advice standpoint, for any of your executives, their succession plan should start the moment they assume the position. So Bob began identifying out. He began doing the same process that he had requested for everyone underneath him prior to becoming CEO. He began utilizing that process with the board of directors. So the first April after taking the position in October, he went before the board of directors and reported his succession plan. He reported a critique of each of his direct reports, and then basically a human capital or executive health status to the board.
Is it a routine or Bob's unique side?
Well, I like to think that Bob is unique. I think he's very special and a very good leader for us. I think it is becoming more critical for companies that are large in scale to have a planful approach to their succession. Some CEOs may resist speaking about or critiquing their employees, their direct reports to the board of directors. It just depends on the relationship they have.
Gentlemen, I'm going to have to step out from my speaking engagement, but it's been a pleasure. Look forward to seeing you on the other side of the night. Yeah, okay, thank you. Nice to meet you. Yes, very much. Okay, thank you very much. Take care. Nice meeting you. Good luck with that. Hope the fires go out soon.
Thank you. We'll see you in a session. We'll look forward to it.
Travels. Thanks.
So you actually see across a lot of organizations, how would you perceive that approach? Is Bob going to the board of directors with the same succession report out? Is that unique?
Actually, I don't think it's unique. I think maybe it was unique 5 years ago, and I don't practice in this area specifically, but my impression of companies is that all the emphasis now on corporate governance, that there's been a huge emphasis on succession planning and increasing the formality of that, and readiness reviews and bench strength reviews. So it relates back to the earlier topic we had as to whether or not companies have a philosophy about internal promote versus hire from outside. And some have very strong opinions about that, their strong philosophies. But in general, I think that there is I think within the last, maybe it's not 5 years, maybe it's 3 years, but a lot of emphasis at the board level on review of formal succession planning and readiness. I mean,
No, you do the succession planning, and I have to include the CIO now. That is not my business. But we do the succession planning in two ways. One is in case of emergency. Who would then do it? And that's maybe another name. Then you have another 4 years in that job and who could follow you.
But it's for every senior manager.
And that is done at least once a year. Sometimes we meet twice a year to have that discussion. And that is really very important, because making these decisions or having these proposals means, on the other hand, that you then have to take, probably you have to take action. Because you define people and say, okay, but he or she should do this or that to get better here or better there. And therefore I'm a great fan of that succession plan.
question, if I may, within our own firm over the last 3 to 5 years, again, more emphasis on formality of succession planning and workforce planning generally, but succession planning specifically. The new wrinkle has been, I don't know if it's new, but significant emphasis on considerations regarding diversity in terms of the top tier. Are women in particular adequately represented among the top tier? Are people of color, people of different geographic backgrounds? Is that something which you see playing out in your organizations?
Absolutely, absolutely. We feel very strongly that increasing the diversity of our executive ranks especially, and that's the focus of our succession planning. So each executive, as they're creating the succession plan or the backup list or the bench that could potentially replace someone, they are asked to bring forth a diverse selected candidate, and that means diverse from discipline, diverse from ethnicity, gender, diverse in regards to the type of business or background information that somebody has. It really plays out in a variety of ways in regards to qualified individuals. So we think that we actually can map that. We're still working on it, but we're basically being able to then look across and do searches across each of the things and identify out, how different are the candidates that potentially could move into this position, so that when time comes, we can select which one might be the best given the circumstances at that point.
Is European companies less concerned?
I said that already this morning. We are limited somehow by language. We are limited in a second issue. At least when you go to a German university for technical science, you find 5 to 10% female student there. So if you have only 5 to 10% female students, you do not end up with 50% in management. It is physically impossible. So it is completely different when we are not talking about core business. Core business is cars. When we are talking about finance, your 20% have to go to somebody. That is different. That is different when we talk about HR or when we talk about the general counsel and things like that. So, but that is BMW in terms of for the core business. There are not enough young ladies with an engineering degree. So therefore, we have two handicaps for really living diversity. Third issue, of course, we have people from around the world, and we need that. But on the other hand, and that is what we have to be very clear, we want that a BMW is a BMW, like a Boeing is a Boeing, and like Walt Disney is the same in Paris or in wherever. So we don't want to diverse our car.
Right.
There is not an Asian version and an African version, and I don't know, West and East Coast version. So you need, we call it the way, we like that we have really all kind of people in terms of how they act, how they think, what they love and what they hate. But not being, we are not planning that. There is no diversity plan.
My impression, and like your view on this, is that diversity as an issue in, whether it's at the board level or executive level, is a high priority in the U.S. In Europe, my impression is it's high, not as high, more of a medium. And in Asia, my impression is it is not yet a strong priority. But I may be wrong about that.
Well, I think in terms of absolute level, I think your statement is very, very fair and accurate. But when it comes to dynamics, I think Asians seem to be very, very quick in adapting a sort of global practices. So there are some companies, like Samsung, for example, that is trying to do everything that their counterpart in Europe or America is doing. So again, probably within Korea or within Japan, there is a Sony versus Microsoft. So I think diversity. Yeah.
I think one of the aspects that's really been important to us lately is outside your native country experience. For our company, for the most part, most of our executives are inside the company. We have about 20% of our executives outside the United States, I should say. And so from that standpoint, we realize our global reach, we need to increase the percentage of our executives that have a global mindset and really look at it differently. And with so many of our folks, U.S.-centric in regards to their work history goes, we're really looking at that from a criteria standpoint, and it's probably our biggest push for job rotations as well, and which is another component of our succession planning. So if you look across outside of your native country and have individuals on your succession plan for your direct reports that bring a perspective outside your native country, it adds to the diversity, and we hope that that's where we'll get the gains quickly.
It's a very important issue. Well, I observed another interesting phenomenon taking place in Korea. Well, in the old days, and still there are many sort of global companies that have headquarter operation from which each of the subsidiary companies within each country is directly controlled. But nowadays, Asia becoming quite big in terms of market size and salience. These Asian countries and company operations in each of these Asian countries have some aspects in common that headquarter people do not comprehend. So what is going on is, a very good example is Kimberly-Clark. Kimberly company. It has, in each country in Asia has its own operation. But coffee?
Coffee.
You have an espresso? Then I would like an
Espresso.
I'll take a cappuccino, actually.
And coffee.
Cappuccino. And but in most of the countries, this Kimberly Clark is a distant second to Procter & Gamble, 5-1. Only in Korea, they have an edge over P&G by 5-1. Procter & Gamble is only 10%, while Kimberly Clark operation has 50 to 70% market share. Particularly because of the CEO, who has a very interesting character, and also is very strong in developing Asian style products. Well, Asians are smaller, I mean babies and females, and they have different characteristics and purchase pattern. So with these new products they develop locally in Korea, they became enormously successful. So what Kimberly Clark has done is to appoint this person to take over the others, Asian region, and within 2 years, every single business has turned from revenue.
Wow.
So-
Significant success stories.
Yes, so it's a kind of regional practices seem to be prevailing in certain industries. Maybe not in every corner.
Consumer business.
Consumer business in
Yeah.
particular, yes.
We actually, again, I seem to be repeating this, but I think that a hybrid or selective model is quite often best. So, and I talk about things, we have a combination, and it sometimes is confusing about what is controlled by the corporate office within a segment, say consumer products or studio, and then how each one of our regions interacts with that. And so from that standpoint, there is that constructive tension that sometimes arises with that. But some of the business segments taking a primary role because of either their dominance or the revenue or the business focus within that. But we also have we've also established several of our emerging markets, such as India. India has a different leadership style. It has a managing director that has P&L, profit and loss responsibilities, and basically every discipline reports to that leader. That is not true in any of the other areas. So we've chosen a different leadership model within an emerging market than a mature market, because we feel as though it needed that higher touch of a leader that had direct responsibility.
Listening to you means that we have different fields. There is the one field that is the product.
Thank you very much.
That is the product.
Can I have coffee cup? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm fine.
Well, you are weight conscious.
Yeah, have to.
Doctor's orders for me.
Second issue, even if it's the same product, the way you sell it can be different and can be very decentralized. And that is what you need, because you cannot sell a car in China as you do it in Germany. It will not work. It's different. The next aspect that is as well as is management style. Even if we have our management guidelines, we have to accept that managing a company in China, for example, and that is not my saying, that is what I've learned in China. China's if you want to be successful in China right now, you need a management style that we had 50 years ago. It is simply different. The people have different expectations what the boss is good for. The boss is not the coach, the boss is simply the boss. So if you send a German trained coach to China, no way. So, and therefore there is no one answer. It really depends on business, on country, on area. So, and to find always the best combination. I think that is what we all pay for.
So even if you exercise globalization,
Thank
It's
you.
by choice.
Yes, of course. There is no one model that fits it all. I don't think so. My experience is completely different, and if you really want to get the final 20% or the final 50%, then you have to deal with the things that are different.
My experience, by the way, is that, I'll say that most Americans don't realize that when it applies to Asia. They sort of think of Asia as one area, and what I like to say is if you've been to one country in Asia, you've been to one country in Asia.
Well, that's what they say in China.
Yeah.
If you've been to Beijing, it's only Beijing.
Yeah,
No more.
different attitudes, yeah.
I think that's
China
very
is
true.
really different.
That's very true. I think that as we've implemented some of our human resource process, there is a benefit, partly because of how things are managed from a regional standpoint, that we implement regional guidelines and regional flexibility in regards to how they use it. But we've also seen the fact that it then needs to go another layer down because there are often restrictions or policies or even preferences that a country would have to do it. To break it out by particular city then, it just goes to show you that everything that we do has an opportunity to be customized according to the preferences.
You may want to know the reason why there are many branch campuses of the United States like MIT and Chicago in Shanghai, but not in Beijing. Reason? In Beijing, the authority is very keen on foreign universities established the branch campus. They literally prohibit. In Shanghai, they say, who cares?
Yeah.
So within the country, they have completely different.
One is entrepreneurial, the
Yes.
private sector
Yes.
focus, the other is very public sector
Public sector
focus, and the SOEs.
Bureaucratic and
I know from somebody in car industry was that there are interesting discussions in Japan about Europe, because it is still today for the one or the other manager in Japan had to understand that between Italy and Sweden it's a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
Or if you go to Greece and to France, that is completely different. And you can see that on the streets, you can see that in restaurants, etc., etc., etc. So that is, I think that might be the same in Asia. I'm not in the position to assess that now, how big are the differences, but to understand that, therefore you need regional people, otherwise you will never get these differences. And can you send somebody from Korea as a manager to China? Yes or no? Or to Japan? Even to Japan? Is that already doable? If yes, on which level? Etc. etc. There are rules somewhere in the room that you have to know, otherwise it might be a perfect disaster, right?
You know, just one related point that Franz,
You're right.
my experience is that, we talked earlier about talent and how you hire talent. Young people in particular have a strong interest in global experience, global opportunities, and they want to learn about Greece and about Japan and about, they want a chance to work with colleagues in those areas. So I think as the world shrinks, this is necessary because of the interests of younger employees.
I think because of that, I think global companies have distinctive advantage in recruiting top talents from all countries.
I hope so.
Only 15 years ago, top students in my school would only opt to go to chaebol companies like Samsung. Now these people all want to go to Boeing, Disneyland, and
Interesting. Interesting.
completely changed in the attitude and planning.
Yeah.
BMW is a very, very attractive.
Yeah, that is what we are trying to, and therefore we are very clear about that. That is not because people love us, that is due to the fact that we have success, and having BMW in the CV is an asset. It is as simple as that.
BMW is a phenomenon in Korea.
But that is linked to Dr. Kim.
Dr. Kim is just central to.
Yes, that is really linked to Dr. Kim.
He has become a sort of celebrity in Korea.
Yeah.
So tell us, what does the future hold? Is it hybrids or diesel?
Diesel. I would like to tell you why. When you go to a diesel engine today, if you take a BMW, a four-cylinder diesel, 320, a car you can ride 200 kilometers an hour if you want to, speed. That ends up with 5.5 to 6 liters per 100 kilometers.
Only that.
Only that.
So 20 kilos per liter. 18.
Yeah. No, sorry, that was wrong. Maximum speed is that car is 200.
200.
So you can, yeah, it is roughly 18. 18.
This is with the hybrid or with the diesel?
That is just diesel.
Okay.
That is just diesel. Hybrid, the disadvantage of hybrid is you need something like 350 kilos of batteries that you have to move. There is only one real, and there are enough compensations right now from not from industry, from magazines, from institutes who took Mercedes cars, BMW cars, Lexus cars, and even if you take the big cars, there are even. But hybrid has one advantage. Hybrid has the advantage that you can start your car in your street without emission. You bring the emission to the next street. You never does the same the other way around. But that is not seen. So you can get a green consciousness because you didn't spoil your street. Because after 2, 3, 4 miles, your engine has to start. Otherwise, you are running out of electrical power. So I don't see that the hybrid system that we have today in that heavy way will be the answer for the future.
That point of view is based on battery technology then.
That is
weight of batteries.
Weight of batteries and technique that you need to make it work. So when we go down when we are even better with diesels, and there is a good chance, we might end up in mild hybrids, something that is smaller, that helps in combination with diesel. That can be really an answer for the future. So, but not that what we have today. That was a perfect, and I have to say that, take my hat, that was a perfect marketing strategy of the Toyota people, and they did that fantastic.
This is interesting. In the U.S., diesels have a bad name.
Yeah.
And it's because General Motors messed up diesel. They had a bad diesel product 25 years ago.
But
diesel still has a bad name.
start next year.
It's starting to change.
Yeah.
But in Europe, all the cars are diesel, or a very high percentage. How about in Korea?
Well, diesel is quite popular with big cars, utility cars.
Utility cars.
But not the smaller,
Small cars.
in Europe, even small cars. I mean, the Golf.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yes. I had a really bad experience with this diesel engine 24 years ago in the United States.
Oh, wow.
When you take today's diesels, even if in Europe the price equals more and more, so that argument doesn't work anymore. Diesel is still a little bit more expensive.
The motor.
The motor.
How about the fuel?
And then the diesel car. That is a little bit cheaper, but that equals more and more.
See, in the U.S., diesel fuel is more expensive than...
It is now.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't, no.
Well, yeah, I think there's a whole lot of reasons for it. Now, if you were here from the Ford Motor Company, would you still have the same answer?
I don't
Or is it because of the type of vehicles and performance expectations that you have?
I think the Ford people who are in the technical divisions They also know that it is very hard right now to get the same fuel consumption with petrol engines, as we have it today with diesel engines. Maybe when we now put more and more effort in these petrol engines, that we equal that. So how that race will go on, I don't know. But what is sure from my side is that we have to find a way, and we launched that campaign in March this year in Geneva and continued in the Frankfurt Auto Show. We haven't said that it is the system engine.
More often than in my home.
Is it the Cadillac?
We have more put in the engine system.
In power?
Utilizing the energy, so we could go down 20%.
It was a gasoline engine that they converted to diesel. It was just,
Is that what they did?
yeah.
You have to have electricity.
You don't need spark plugs. No, that's a mistake.
By the way, well, he's asking one final question, that is, in Korea, well, every major company and want to go abroad and globalize its human resources operation, but they have enormous difficulty in recruiting the local people. It is not their own will that they send the Koreans to abroad, but the difficulty, probably lack of understanding of this recruiting local people, that they have to depend on Korean. Do you have any advice on how to do it? For example, when you come to Korea, how you recruit good people?
We do. Nobody would come from Germany to recruit people here, because local people should be recruited by local people.
But then how do you recruit that local people who would recruit local people?
You need not many. Takes a story of AGK. We had
Yes.
Yes, we had for some time here a German president who had big Asian experience, so Korea was new for him, but not completely new. And he hired AGK very early for finance, trained him, and then he got president. So that was the plan.
Quite a few years.
Yes. So and that is what we always try to have, that the two main players, the president and the finance guy, that are normally the main players. One is local and one comes from Germany. So that is check and balance on one side, and that is training each other on the other side.
Planning and waiting. What about in Walt Disney? Do you have good people in Korea?
We do.
Is it Korean who represent your operation? Or
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The majority of our folks work in areas that they are native to the country. So we have very few expats, United States citizens that move into a different country. We have more rotation, but we hire individuals as a local when we do that. Okay, and so when a person, say, if I were to apply for a human resource position in Hong Kong, I would be hired as a local hire, a Hong Kong local hire instead of an expat. I think one of the benefits, it's hard for me to perceive, because I feel as though we're able to hire outside of the United States because we have a brand awareness of our product and services, and a worldwide kind of respect for that and acknowledgement. That's a benefit to us, like it is for BMW. Unfortunately, there is probably a low recognition for certain Korean businesses that are gigantic and stand for great quality, within this region. If they were recruiting outside the United States, there is probably an education that would need to occur for someone in the United States to even have an appreciation for the magnitude of the business sense that the company has. So perhaps it may be more about marketing the strength of the business in Korea and the quality of that aspect so that it has that recognition outside of Korea.
Could you help me with one issue, and probably you could be helping too, Dick? One of the toughest jobs is get an American out of or leave his country. They are going from the West Coast to the East Coast and saying, hey, that's enough. But please let me hear. Is that
I think
specific?
relocation of Americans is difficult because the American market by itself is so big, there's so much opportunity there. But I do think that there's a strong interest, in particular now among younger people, in global opportunities. My challenge is that these global opportunities, they want to go to Berlin or Paris or Tokyo. Tell them that they have to go to a second-tier city in China.
No way.
Yeah, forget it. So it has to be perceived as a positive.
That's true within the United States as well for us, and maybe true for some of yours, because, I mean, Dick was talking this morning how difficult it is to send somebody into one of the smaller or less prestigious states when it comes to careers. It's much easier if he's trying to book somebody into Los Angeles or New York or something that has a persona of excitement. But I won't name any states out of the fear of offending someone.
Yeah, I'm about to start a project in a certain country, which is going to be very difficult. But in our own firm, we have operations in 130 countries. Each of those is an indigenous practice, a local practice serving the local country. We have some expatriates leading practices, supporting practices, but that's the exception rather than the norm. It's interesting asking the question about Korean companies. I'll use an analogy for a minute. My impression of Japanese companies. Japanese companies, many of them historically operated as Japanese companies doing business in many countries around the world, but they were Japanese companies. Over the last 5 years, I think many of those companies are trying to become more global. They want to become more global, less Japanese-centric, and that's going to take a long time. But I think for Korean companies that are just starting out, if they're just starting out, the opportunity to present themselves as a global company, I think will actually facilitate their ability to recruit on a local basis.
Changes the brand perception totally of someone that you would be recruiting outside of your country.
One strength Korean companies have vis-a-vis other countries, including Japan, is that most of the CEOs in Korea are American engineering. Argue that probably Korean CEOs have more American MBAs than many other countries, perhaps including America.
Interesting.
Roughly 10 years ago, we made a simple study. We took 50 young engineers at the Boeing, or alumni from whatever universities, and asked them that they should try to figure out how international is their company. Because we had that discussion, can you make or can you develop international candidates on the store that you need them at some time? First answer, no way. Start to be international and then you get the people. The next thing that we have learned, and I wasn't clear about that, there are the 5 steps of internationalism. And first you are exporting your goods. That is the easiest way. Second thing, if you export, you need somehow to get the money from outside. So finances internationally. If you want to export, you have to import. So procuring, sourcing, then production, and finally R&D. Lolio is now at step 4, and that is what we see. Our R&D is really in their complete mindset. They are local. Versus when you see the sales guys doing that now for many years, the meetings in Munich are held in English. You couldn't do so in R&D. So that was an interesting thing, and I'm telling that probably Korea, most of the Korean companies, they are not that old. So what stage are they right now? And it takes simply time.
Well, I would say most Korean companies, leading companies, that in the fourth stage as well.
The fourth,
yes. And some companies are trying to have R&D. But, design, separately from R&D, is very local. So I think most Korean companies, when they send manufacturing part, they send design part as well. Because design is very local customer
Local
oriented.
market focus, yeah.
One answer to your difficulty in recruiting Americans outside America is to spot people from the MBA program in outside the United States. For example, in Singapore, and now even in Korea, there are prestigious MBA programs where many Americans attend as students. They have obvious sort of inclination to work for companies in Asia. So these might be the best candidates.
Of course, the other challenge, that someone who speaks 2 languages, we say is bilingual. Someone who speaks 3 languages is trilingual. Someone who speaks 1 language is American. That's the unfortunate reality.
Yeah, language is a very big issue, and for us, it's part of kind of the diversity package that we look for with individuals at this point in time. We're actually fortunate we're increasing our language capabilities, but they're not where they could be. They're not where they would be if we were based outside the United States.
I love that nice little saying when you check UK and US, 2 companies divided by a common language. I'm afraid I have to be honest.
Another last joke.
Here's one of the cards that I...
Oh, really?
That's okay. Do you have this one also? It stops? Oh, yes, you don't. No, I have it. Okay, that's fine.
If you need one from me. I think this one is one I...
Okay, thank you, Franz. I thought I had to pick it.
Which language is most used in the world?
Which?
Which language?
Chinese. Mandarin.